Greetings, blessings, and gratitude for choosing Info Dissected, the podcast with Chuks, Kae-C, and our special guest, Kalisha. In this episode, we need to talk about consent. I'm going to open this episode by asking what your understanding of consent is as a man and as a woman, Kalisha, our special guest for this episode. Once again, thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
Chuks, what is your understanding of consent?
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, first I'll just give my definition without looking at the homework that's been done.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say my definition, if you'd asked me beforehand, would have just been simply someone giving you permission.
Okay.
Simple and plain as that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the definition that I did get was Might be.
Okay.
Permission. Permission for something to happen, agreement to do something.
Okay. And Kalisha, what's your understanding of consent?
Well, yeah, I guess basically the same thing. It is it's to basically to give permission, like for something to happen or agree to do something. Yeah, I feel like that's quite just the standard definition, I would say.
Do you feel that for me, my understanding was exactly that, giving someone permission for something to happen or that you're willing to partake in something.
Yeah.
But the broader picture that I was given and something I will now put to you is it possible to give consent without being verbal?
Yeah, see, this was something that this was one of the first things that pops into kind of my head, in terms of consent, because I feel like there's definitely non-verbal cues and it goes kind of both ways. So, for example, there are situations where a person might kind of be saying yes.
Yeah.
With their mouth.
And
their voice.
Yeah, like verbally, yes. But kind of everything else, body language and all of that kind of stuff is kind of saying no. So one of the things that I was going to actually ask is, should that be something that is more, I guess, taught more amongst kind of both genders kind of thing, to be aware of that, because there are a lot of situations. I know you guys have just had a conversation about childhood trauma, and I think that one of the things that comes from, or can come from, childhood trauma is the blurred line, the boundaries, the not having any boundaries, or not knowing how to set boundaries, or not really knowing how to say no, or that you can say no. I feel like there are definitely non-verbal cues.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like they're as accepted or acknowledged as, the verbal is. So yeah, to answer the question in short, yes, I would definitely say that there are non-verbal cues going both ways. I have a lot of male friends, and on the flip side of that, there've maybe been situations where somebody has kind of said no initially, or said they're not going to initially for one reason or another, and then for one reason or another, that has then changed. So yeah, again, maybe not verbally, but in a non-verbal way. So yeah, I definitely think that there are non-verbal ways to consent or not consent.
So we've got two scenarios, because one which you outlined is somebody who is saying yes, but their body language is saying, I'm not on this.
Yeah.
There's also the flip side of somebody who is saying, no, stop it, I don't want you to, but they're playing up their stuff and carrying on.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really know how to put that a little bit more diplomatically. Put it that way, as it is. Well, yeah, basically, that's kind of what I was saying,
Yeah. So, question: what percentage of uni students understood that it is not possible to give consent when drunk, Because if we're talking about consent, we're also talking about capacity. Do you have capacity to say no? And so the man or the woman can say, well, they didn't tell me to stop or they didn't say no. But if they're high as a kite or drunk as a bat, then you don't have capacity to say no. So I'll ask you two, what percentage of uni students felt or understood that it's not possible to give consent when drunk?
I'll say 20 to 30, between 20 to 30%.
So I was going to say then, I'll be easy and say 15.
So 15 or 20 to 30% of uni students.
25.
Okay, it was 30%.
Okay.
So the other 70% thought that you could give consent while you're drunk.
Of course they did, because I feel like this is only really a conversation that has recently
100%
became a thing. And again, it's because there's so many, of these cases where mostly female, but I'm sure there are some males as well, have, been on a night out, or they've met somebody on a night out, or, even being with
gone to
somebody,
shag
on a night out, and then kind of what other people might perceive it as, oh, they've regretted it.
Yeah.
Wish that they hadn't done it and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's not, because there hasn't been much success. There isn't like a very high success rate at all in those kind of cases. I think it's like 1% or something have reported sexual assaults or rapes are actually, and the outcome is a conviction. So I'm not surprised is the point, because I feel like for a long time I kind of didn't really know that either. It's only the past few years where the conversation has been prevalent that it's like, oh yeah, actually that makes sense,
That's a stupid question.
Yeah.
That's a stupid question.
No,
So that's
question, James.
they definitely are. But this one is, so I'll be saying that there's no way to have sex when you're drunk.
No, so I don't think that's I think of one of the most difficult things about this, consent is those kind of things. I feel like if it's a stranger, if it's somebody you don't know from Adam, I feel like it's a bit more clear cut, because you don't know them. You don't know kind of what they're usually like when they're drunk, what their previous, but you don't know. You've got no kind of gauge. You've got no line. So I feel like in those kind of situations, it's better not to throw caution to the wind.
Okay, so it's not that it's not possible. It's more that it's not worth taking the risk.
It's not worth taking the risk. I would say, for me, I would say that would be my point of view. Whereas if it's somebody that you know, and again, there's levels, because it's like if they can't stand and you've had to carry them home, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But if you guys have had a drink together and you've both had a couple of drinks and you're both tipsy, as you say, and again, it's somebody you know or somebody you've got a long-standing relationship with, or your actual partner.
So ambiguous. This is so ambiguous.
I feel like if you've had that conversation, if you've had that conversation before and to that point, so like this isn't someone you've met a couple of times. You may even be in a relationship with them. You may have had some dates. And I think even if you're a happy married couple, if you've gone to a wedding and the kids are at your mum's and you kind of have that conversation, oh, we ain't got the kids. That's different, because you're almost making that arrangement. And the same as if you met somebody or you're dating somebody and you do go out for drinks, I think there'll come a point where you're feeling a bit tipsy, that you'll kind of be given the body language, all the signals. If that's what you're on, that is where the night is going to end up. I don't feel like
subjective, but go on.
I believe it's down to a person's consciousness, and I don't believe that if a man is trying to be intimate with a woman or a woman with a man, that in their hearts of hearts they are not aware of whether that person wants to engage or participate. And in that moment, they may be too caught up in the moment to put the other person first, depending on who the other person is, and just feel like this is what I want. So this is what I'm going to do. And like I said, she's not saying no. So I'm going to just do what I'm doing. I don't feel like what I said, that if you've just met somebody, you haven't had much interaction with them as a sober person, and it is a case of, them just taking you off somewhere, or let's get a hotel, or get in the back of the car, that's completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think both situations, though, that you just described, both situations could be either situation. Both situations.
Yeah,
Of
course it could be, but that's the point. It could be either situation. So rather than just assume that just because, she's saying, yeah, she wants to, like,
No, I'm saying that.
no, I'm not saying that you are, but I'm like, if it's a situation where, she's had a drink and she's saying, yes, she wants to, but it's someone that you don't know.
Yeah.
Then yeah, she could be, she might do it and not feel any way the next day, but she might not.
100%.
Do you know what I mean?
And so, someone you're married to, someone that you've had a conversation with before, but now they're drunk and they're feeling some type of way, or for whatever reason they don't like the way their body looks, or they're thinking about something that's happened to them before, and you don't got this long-standing relationship and whatever, and now it's time to lay down. Their body language is saying, "Oh, I'm really on it, but I feel like I have to because I kind of made this play earlier, and I've said all this before, and I've
well, I would say if you sense any doubt, then did it.
But what if you don't? That's what I'm trying to say.
But that's what you just said, is that if the body language is kind of
to her, hey, maybe I should explain it, but it's a scenario that I'm explaining where, like, obviously, if a guy, unless you are a raper, yeah, unless you're that guy, if you see that a woman doesn't want to do it, you don't want to do it. Like, so you really believe that. I'm saying that I think that there's rapers out there, people that are abusers.
The word opportunist, otherwise we may not.
Okay, opportunist.
Yeah.
No, opportunists is not what they are. Yeah, so anybody who knows that the person doesn't want to do something and does it anyway, that is R-word. Like that's what they, even if they look inwardly within themselves, that's what they are. Yeah? And it doesn't mean that that's the only type of person that can R-word somebody. Because you can still do that without it being necessarily what your thought process was in the moment, is what I'm saying, right? So that gray area, that ambiguity comes for me anyway, where I look at it and say, okay, this person believed what they heard, didn't see the signs, didn't see the body language or the other signs that you or the lack of enthusiasticness. Yeah. Didn't notice those things, whether they were drunk as well, whether they're just stupid or whatever the reason is. Their intention was not to ignore her or take advantage of, right? Now, those two people aren't necessarily the same, but like I say, in most things, like, intention is only 50% of it, because the fact of the matter is the person who's been subject to the thing is still experienced the thing. Mm-hmm. So my real point really is there a difference between those two examples I gave? And if there is a difference between those two examples I gave, how do you deal with the two examples? Like, do you think those two examples are the same? Are they the same person? Have those two people done the same thing?
Well, the person who's seen that they're uncomfortable and done it anyway, and the person who hasn't seen, well, obviously not. If they genuinely haven't seen it, then you can't. In my opinion, I couldn't say that they're the same now, because if they've not seen it, then they've not witnessed behaviour and then gone against that.
But then have they?
However, there's probably an element of neglect on their part to really kind of pay attention and make sure that what they're doing is what the other person wants to.
I like to kind of have a scenario. So, say, for example, the person you're describing first is someone who's down the pub. They've had a few, you've had a few, and they're trying it on. And then the other person is maybe somebody who you know, who you have a connection with, a friendship with, who is maybe more in tune and able to read the signs, but still is going to try it.
Rather than them being two different scenarios, let's say they're both why not put them both in the same situation? So they're both somebody that you know before. They're both somebody that it's not the first time you're meeting them. Maybe it's probably not even, it's not even the first time that you've been some level of intimate with them. Maybe you've had sex with them before, right? It's an ex or whatever in both scenarios. The first scenario, you're on it. It's vibes. It's cool. Like the wind's blowing in the right direction. Everything's just good. Boom. And then maybe you've had one too many drinks, and it's now you're thinking the reason why I stopped linking this person from way back or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? It's something like that's happened, but the person hasn't seen that. That person is still in that vibe, or he or she is still in that vibe of we've had a good night. It's vibes. It's boom. It's everything. Like we both know what it is. We spoke, agrees, whatever it is that however it's gone. That person, yeah. So they haven't seen or they don't know that you as a person had that change of heart. Even though if we're looking at it objectively, there were signs after the fact.
To that. I know you enough to just pick up on that cue. So I think that person would be more about, I can see that she or he's not really on it, but we've been here before, or we're cool like that. So it's not really going to be a big thing if I just keep it going.
What you don't? I'm not having. That's a rapist. That's an Owen. What are you talking about?
Describing somebody going against the vibe.
No, they haven't. No, I'm saying, look, listen, they are both.
So what I would say to that person, because what you're saying is, so they've chatted about it, maybe they've even done the deed before or whatever, and then what you're saying is maybe there were signs, but that person just didn't pick up on them.
Right.
They just didn't really see them or notice them. Well, I would also say that that's a them problem, like, because do better, Like, if the signs are there, right, then open your eyes. What are you doing? And if you can't see them and you're saying, because
I remember I haven't said what the signs are. It could just be, I don't know, they're looking at their phone a bit or something like that, for example. Yeah? Like, it don't have to be like, don't touch me or moving skin.
Yeah, no, but it depends. I feel like if there's a level of like discomfort or even doubt.
Anyone who cares will pick up on the cues. And it is down to that individual to either understand it.
I don't know what the cues we're talking about here.
Huh?
It's the cues that unless you're going to be specific about what the cues are, because your cues that you might show might be different to what your, for example. Do you get what I'm saying? So
but
it's like they're into a universal cue.
Okay.
And then the other, go on.
If we speak of cues as just being enthusiasm, that's it. So you're being kissed and you're not kissing back, or you're being touched and you're not touching back, or whatever. You're not moving. You're not doing anything.
Let's say those things are happening. Let's say those things are happening. They're drunk and they're kissing you. They're only kissing you back because they feel like it's the right thing to do. Because it happens. I've had many a conversation after the fact with many women that feel some level of guilt because they feel like they couldn't push back or they couldn't reject the person for whatever the reason was. So let's say they have kissed back. Let's say they are touching when you're touching, but they, in themselves, they know that this is not how they would be moving or how they moved when they linked the person 2 years ago when they felt better about the situation.
Well, if they're kissing back and there seems to be a level of reciprocity, kissing back, touching back or whatever, then I wouldn't say that is cues for somebody to pick up on, or that there'd be anything beyond that where somebody could pick up and think there's something wrong here. I'm more thinking of a scenario where somebody is not responding. But having said that, and I'm very aware of how long this episode I was listening to I don't even know if it was a podcast, but it was something on a YouTube channel about this young lady who was being sexually abused by her mum's husband. Now, she didn't speak about it for the mere fact that when he was being intimate with her, she was climaxing. So she felt that because she was, and that meant she was enjoying it, that she couldn't possibly not want it. And it's almost like her mental wasn't in tune with her physical for her to be able to do that. And so I'm saying, you know, if the body language isn't this and there, then he should know. But in a scenario like that, I mean, other than the fact that she was
of course.
completely, yeah.
Yeah.
If it was similar age scenario and that was happening, how would he know unless she's going to physically say no? But then, you know, if you're
again, I feel like it's more about knowing a person, and obviously that's not going to be the situation in every case.
No.
But again, that's why I feel like it is important for men and women to be aware of like who you're sharing your energy with, because I'm sure that most decent men, you know, like, and non-opportunist or opportunistic men, you know, don't want to be in a situation where they're maybe with somebody who does have that kind of mindset and who isn't able to voice when they want to kind of put a boundary in place. That's why you kind of need to know who you're laying down with, have certain conversations, find out what, like, where people's heads are at, like how much people are comfortable with, what people have, you know, been through. And obviously not everybody's going to tell you that, and not everybody's going to want to have those conversations. And obviously not everybody wants to know very deeply who they're lying down with. You know, that's a, but I mean, for me, I feel like that is the only kind of solution to those kind of situations. Like, if you really, really don't want to be in a situation where you could possibly be sleeping with somebody who is not 100% of the way there, or maybe feels a little bit icky about it, or is a little bit unsure, or whatever, then know who you're laying down with. And for me, that's...
I agree.
There were some interesting facts that I found out recently. And the thing that was most concerning for me was that young people, especially school age, weren't aware of how accepting they were of sexual harassment and sexual abuse. And I don't know whether that is because the umbrella now has 8 segments instead of 6, but the umbrella is big. Like, we're talking about anything from pinging a bra strap to calling someone gay is sexual harassment. So young teens now, if, you know, one of the man them don't want to do something, it's like, oh, you're gay, or you're whatever other words they may call them. Yeah, you know what I mean. That is also a form of sexual harassment. And so I don't know if now that all these things have been put under the umbrella, and we have teenage girls saying, you know, it's too small to report, or all the boys do it, or, you know, it's not that big a deal, or my friends don't complain about it, so I'm not going to complain about it. It's almost allowing those situations to escalate to a point now where things that are unacceptable are being accepted. And then where does that consent line get drawn? What was explained to me was that anything that is not an enthusiastic participation should be considered a no. So that's where you draw the line. You're in bed with your man or your woman, or you met somebody out at the pub or the dance, or, you know, you linked up with some schoolgirl that you've met in school, and they're not all in it like you're all in it. Consider that a no. And that is where consent is now. Regardless of whether they said yes, go on, or okay then, if it is not an enthusiastic yes, it is a no. If they are lying there like a cabbage, it is a no.
There's a whole load of area between lying there like a cabbage and enthusiastic. Like, let me hang on these chandelier here and swing from doorway.
If somebody is not participating, if somebody is literally laying there, they're not touching you, they're not trying to kiss you.
That's like
that is
No,
That's what I
no, but a man may look at that and think, or a woman would
a psycho. Any man that looks at that like that is a crazy person and a psycho and needs a gunshot on soft drinks.
There are men.
Yeah, that's somebody who's an abuser and
using the advantage.
all of those words.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So there's not a grey area on consent.
It's not a grey area as far as you are concerned. However, a next man might argue, she said yeah, or she said all right then. She's let me take off her clothes. So if she's not telling me no, then I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do.
And I feel like that's more common than
no. If you're not participating, if you're not enjoying it, if it's not being reciprocated, you're not kissing back, you're not doing anything back, you're just there, it's a no. So where you're talking about, I can see you're getting a bit. Come on, talk to me, Chuks.
Thanks. I was ready to just. But it's ready.
I know. Come on.
So there's so much. There's so many. Thank you. There's so many areas that I kind of want to either revisit or kind of delve a bit deeper into, right? So I've written down here the non-verbal consent, right? And I feel like there is a level of ambiguity. When you say, all right, cool, there's you're saying one thing and then your feeling is another thing. I can understand how that's possible from the subject of the interaction's point of view. But then if I'm gonna be devil's, angels, whatever, the advocate, the other side of the coin, and look at it, that takes a lot of understanding. Like, and obviously I'm not talking about someone that's unconscious, or I'm not talking about somebody who is obviously not on it, but is just doesn't know how to say no, or doesn't, or can't, or doesn't know if saying no is even gonna make a difference, and their whole body language is, I don't want to do this, and somebody's ignoring the obvious signs. I'm talking about more that grey area where somebody is like, maybe I shouldn't really be doing this, but I don't know, I've said yes, so they personally feel like they have to go through with that. Yeah. And as much as that makes sense, can the person, the guy, whoever on the other side who is unaware of all of that, like can the blame be laid at their door for not seeing that sign?
And this is what this is about. It's awareness. And so if a man or a woman is not aware that by, engaging in, let's just say, sexual activity with somebody who is not enthusiastic, giving as much as they're getting, then there's something wrong.